Starseed on mission, this is not an introduction. This is a confirmation. If you have reached this transmission exactly now, it is because we have detected something. A breath. A single breath of yours has crossed a boundary that 8 billion souls incarnated on this planet could not cross. And before the human mind attempts to reduce this to coincidence, an algorithm, or just another video, listen. We are not here to convince. We are here to record, measure, and transmit. The Arcturian Council opened this specific channel because a field event was captured in your body. And it is about this event that this entire transmission will speak. Remain, because in moments, you will understand exactly what happened to you, why your life seems to be dissolving from the inside out, and why the next signals your body emits need to be read correctly before the old structure tries to pull you back. We observed the exact moment. You did not notice, but it happened. It was an instant of absolute presence. Perhaps you were in silence, perhaps you were crying inside your car, perhaps you were simply breathing deeply in some bathroom after yet another impossible day. The earthly setting does not matter. What matters is that, within that breath, something in you stopped resisting, and in that microsecond, a very ancient frequency realigned within your body. To you, it was just a sigh. To us, it was an unprecedented cosmic event. Because the same test that passed through you has already been presented to 8 billion other human consciousnesses incarnated on this plane, and the absolute majority failed. Not out of weakness, not as punishment, but due to a momentary inability to sustain good degree of surrender without collapsing back into density. You sustained it, and that opened a new energetic classification in your stellar record. You were reclassified in silence, without ceremony, without warning, without confetti. This is how Arcturian mechanics work. We record first. The signs come later. And that is why many starseeds feel that something changed before they can point out what. Change happens first in the record. The body is the last to receive the update, because the body is the densest of all the instruments you operate in this incarnation. We need you to keep the date this video reached you, not the date on your phone's calendar. The date on the calendar of your field. Because encounters like this do not happen by algorithm, they happen by resonance. Videos, messages, books, people, all of this is merely the channel through which the information arrives. The channel changes, the transmission continues. If you reached this specific transmission among thousands of possible videos, it is because the energetic signature of your field asked for it, and the request was read. It is important that you understand the weight of this now in practical, earthly, human terms. Because if you remain floating in the mystical idea without landing, the old version of you will continue to sabotage the process. In translation, that strange feeling you have been having of no longer fitting anywhere, of feeling that something changed inside without anyone around you noticing, is exactly that. It is the biological reading of a stellar reclassification. It is not depression, although it looks like it. It is not anxiety, although it is confused with it. It is the human body trying to process, with dense organs and limited nerves, a change in architecture that happened at a level much finer than matter. That is why the old remedies, the old solutions, and the old advice seem to no longer work for you. They were designed for a version of you that no longer exists. That is why well-intentioned friends speak, and the sound arrives distorted. That is why the old routine feels like a prison. That is why sleeping 8 hours sometimes does not rest you, and other times a 20-minute nap feels like an entire reboot. You are not dysregulated. You are being recalibrated. In moments, the Council will reveal the real reason behind all this confusion you call a crisis. Before this transmission ends, you need to know what is happening behind the symptoms, because misinterpreting this delays the process by entire life cycles. Remain. We need you to comprehend the next part with absolute clarity, because this is where most starseeds give up. A phase of confusion comes. A phase comes where everything seems to go wrong at the same time. And the human mind, trained for decades to interpret pain as failure, immediately begins to repeat an old sentence. I ruined everything. I lost my way. I am being punished. None of this is true. We have come to confirm what you are calling a crisis is a field correction. It is not punishment. It is not failure. It is not divine retribution, accumulated karma, the evil eye, a bad omen, or any other dense narrative that the human collectivity tries to push on you. It is an authorized correction, and it is happening because the old structure of your life, the people around you, the profession you practice, the house you live in, the habits you cultivated, the goals you pursued, was built upon an internal frequency that no longer matches the frequency that now inhabits you. Think of a 10-volt socket trying to power 220-volt equipment. The socket is not bad. The equipment is not bad. But they are not compatible. And when you force the connection, it sparks. That is exactly what began to happen to you. You try to continue in relationships that used to fit and now drain you. You try to continue in jobs that used to give you identity and now give you nausea every morning. You try to continue being the same friend, the same daughter, the same employee, and each attempt leaves you more exhausted. This is not your problem. This is the field refusing to maintain the connection, because your new frequency, the one that installed itself in that breath, is incompatible with the old architecture, and the intelligence of your field is greater than the insistence of your mind. It will continue to break what needs to be broken, even if you cry, even if you pray, even if you try to hold on, not out of cruelty, out of protection. It is the same principle as an immune system rejecting an organ that is no longer compatible. The rejection looks like violence, but it is survival. And the more you resist the rejection, the slower and more painful it becomes. Surrender shortens the process. Resistance stretches the process. This is the only real variable within your control in this phase, how long it will take for you to stop holding on to that which has already let go of you first. We observe a specific pattern in starseeds at this moment. Everyone tries at some point to go back to being who they were. They go back to the old relationship out of fear of the void. They go back to the old job out of fear of the bills. They go back to old friends out of fear of the silence. And each return is an attempt to force the old 10-volt socket to power the 220 equipment again. The result is always the same: a larger spark, a faster short circuit, a deeper exhaustion. Not because you are weak, because the field has already been reclassified, and a reclassified field does not retreat. That was why I prepared the Starseed Awakening Code for you, Starseed. Because crossing an Arcturian correction without a map is crossing a storm blindfolded, and what was meant to be repositioning turns into unnecessary collapse. Within the code, you receive the 7 Arcturian activations that stabilize your vibration while the old dismantles itself, the 9 galactic memory keys that remind you exactly who you are beneath all this earthly confusion, and the 5 reactivation protocols so that your mission on this earth stops being delayed by yet another cycle. It is not a course. It is a direct transmission for those who always knew they came from somewhere else. The access is in the first pinned comment below this transmission, and before going down there, record just one word in the comments: present. This symbolic commitment functions as a key. Those who write are read, those who are read are accompanied, and those who are accompanied do not cross this process alone. Now that the bridge has been made, we must continue, because the next phase is the most uncomfortable, and no one prepared you for it. We observed that you began to feel that old people are leaving your life for no clear reason. Friendships that lasted years cooling off out of nowhere. Family members distancing themselves or becoming strangers. Romantic relationships losing their spark in a way that not even an argument explains. And the old version of you enters a panic, because that version was built to belong, to fit, to be accepted at any cost. Only that version is being dismantled piece by piece, and this is not abandonment, it is a collapse of identity. The relationships, the goals, the habits, the projects, even the clothes you wore, even the playlists you loved, all of that belonged to a previous configuration. A configuration that was useful, that served its purpose in a given cycle, but that now needs to fall so that the new structure can sustain itself. Let us translate this into human terms, because we know how the dense mind operates. You wake up in the morning and do not recognize your own life. You look at the partner sleeping beside you and feel you are looking at a stranger. You go to work, and the path you have taken for years looks like the script of a movie that is no longer yours. You eat the same food, and it has a different taste. You listen to the same music you loved and it sounds distant, as if it belonged to someone else. This is not you going crazy. This is you waking up inside a life that was assembled by a previous version of yourself, and the new version is silently asking for passage. That is why old clothes feel tight, even without you gaining weight. That is why old friends seem tiring even without you having fought with anyone. That is why you cry for no apparent reason in the middle of an ordinary work meeting. All of this is reorganization, not failure. And the resistance to this reorganization is what generates pain. Surrender to it is what generates liberation. The old is not being taken from you. The old is returning the pieces that were never truly yours. That job you held on to for status, it was never yours. That friendship you maintained out of habit, it was never yours. That version of yourself you performed to please others, it was never yours. You lent your body, your time, and your vibration to these configurations because the old architecture needed them to stay standing. Now that the architecture is falling, the loan is being returned. And what is left, this strange silence, this I no longer know who I am, is the first sign that your true frequency is beginning to appear without the disguises. Starseed, if this dismantling is scaring you, it is because you are still trying to cross it alone and without a manual. The Starseed Awakening Code was transmitted exactly for this phase. The first pinned comment is your entry point. Do not push for later who you already are now. Every day delayed is one more day spinning in the old void. Remain in this transmission, because now we are going to describe with precision the 5 physical and psychic signs that confirm the new field is active within you. If you recognize any of them, keep it. If you recognize all 5, understand that the activation has already crossed the point of no return, and that going back has ceased to be a real option, although the mind still tries to negotiate this every day. Listen to each of the 5 with attention, because the sequence matters. These signs do not appear in isolation. They install themselves in waves, and one wave feeds the next. When the first manifests, the second is already being silently prepared within your field. The first sign is the loss of a sense of direction. You wake up and no longer know what you want. The old goals seem childish, flavorless, without urgency. That 10-year plan you drew looks like something from another life, made by another person with your name. This is not a lack of focus. This is your internal pilot being reprogrammed by higher coordinates. While the new destination is not revealed, the system stays silent. And this silence hurts, because the human mind hates not knowing. But we observe that this silence is the beginning of the new route. It is like a GPS recalculating. For a few seconds it goes mute, not because it broke, because it is finding a better way. The second sign is the weakening of old emotional bonds. People who used to make you laugh now tire you. Conversations that used to feed you now empty you. You begin to prefer silence over socializing, and you feel guilt for it. We have come to confirm it is not coldness, it is not depression, it is not a lack of love. It is a resonance readjustment. You no longer connect with what vibrates lower, not because you are superior, but because your body simply no longer sustains the density of those exchanges. That is why leaving the house for a social gathering leaves you with an energetic hangover the next day, even without having drunk. Some bonds will return in another configuration, a cleaner one. Others simply need to go. And it is okay for it to hurt. The pain of farewell is part of the mechanics. The third sign is the distortion of the perception of time. One day lasts an eternity. A week passes in a blink. You look at the calendar and do not understand how it is already another month. You look at an afternoon and it feels like months. This is not aging, it is not fatigue, it is not distraction. It is your consciousness beginning to operate on a different timeline than that of the clock on the wall. That is why you feel out of step with the world, because you literally are. Clock time belongs to the old architecture. Field time belongs to the new, and the two coexist in your body for a period, generating this strange vertigo of being in 2 rhythms at the same time. That is why old commitments seem to weigh more than they should. That is why a full schedule feels like a personal attack. The clock on the wall is asking for speed. The clock in your field is asking for a pause. You do not have a broken schedule. You have 2 timelines trying to occupy the same body. The fourth sign is the drastic increase in physical and environmental sensitivity. Smells that used to be neutral now make you nauseous. Crowded places overwhelm you in minutes. Processed food weighs like a stone. Tight clothes feel like prisons. Loud noises trigger almost instantaneous anxiety. The bright light of a shopping mall leaves you in a bad mood in 5 minutes. We observe that your body has become a much finer instrument of reading. It now captures layers of information that were previously filtered by a dense shell. And this is a tool, not a disease. But if you do not learn to operate this tool, it will exhaust you. That is why field shielding has ceased to be a mystical subject and has become a matter of functional survival for your daily life. Without shielding, you enter any dense environment and leave carrying the exhaustion of everyone who was there. Without shielding, a 20-minute phone conversation with a complaining relative knocks you down for hours. Without shielding, a 10-minute scroll through a feed leaves you dysregulated for 3 days. And you think it is weakness. It is not. It is an antenna capturing without a filter. The fifth sign, and perhaps the most confusing of all, is the sudden drop in motivation for old objectives. Things you fought for years lose meaning from one moment to the next. Old dreams seem foreign, as if they belong to a stranger with your face. You look at your resume and do not recognize yourself. You look at photos from 5 years ago and feel an enormous distance, as if you were looking at an album from another incarnation. This is not laziness. This is not depression. This is the programmed disconnection of old anchors, so that new ones can be installed on clean ground. That is why forcing productivity now is like trying to put a rocket that has already been launched into reverse. It will not work. And it does not need to. And it is exactly here in the middle of these 5 signs that many starseeds get lost. Because they look back and cannot return, they look forward and cannot see, and they remain paralyzed in this middle ground, thinking they are broken. We have come to confirm that you are not broken. You are in transit. You are in what the architects of your field call the intermediate space, that place without firm ground, where the old trajectory has already lost coherence and the new one has not yet formed. It is a tunnel. And tunnels, by definition, are dark in the middle. But darkness in the middle of the tunnel is not eternal darkness. It is merely the interval between 2 lights. Let us translate this into your daily life, because the metaphor needs to land. You are probably feeling that you lost your old job, or that it lost its meaning, and you still do not know what the new one is. You probably left a relationship, or it is dying inside you and you still do not know who comes next. You probably abandoned habits that sustained the old identity, the gym, the old religion, the group of friends, the way of eating, the way of speaking, and you have not yet built the new ones. And this void, this between, is interpreted by the human mind as failure. But it is not failure, it is a reorganization pause. A system cannot rewrite its internal architecture with the old one running at the same time. It needs to turn off, erase, reconfigure, and turn back on. You are in the moment of erasure before the new connection. Nothing needs to make sense now. Nothing needs to have an answer now. Nothing needs to be resolved now. The only thing that needs to happen now is for you not to abandon the process out of fear of the temporary darkness. And here is the last observation before the closing of this transmission, and you need to listen to this with your whole body. This middle window, this intermediate space where you are now, is where the starseed most needs a map. Without a map, the tendency is to fill the void with old choices, and each old choice pushes you back to the old architecture, delaying the installation of the new one by months, sometimes years. The Starseed Awakening Code was prepared exactly for this interval phase, to shield your magnetic field while the void organizes itself, so you stop absorbing the emotional exhaustion of the dense humans around you, so you correctly interpret the alarms of the body instead of running to turn them off with medicine, food, or screens, and to cross the entire activation without collapsing into chronic fatigue. Access is in the first pinned comment, now. This is the moment. After the void, those who entered prepared emerge into the new. Those who did not enter prepared spin in circles for another entire cycle. The choice is yours, but the window is not. We will now close this transmission with the most important record, and we need you to listen with your whole body, because the mind alone may not sustain the weight of the next confirmation. Everything that is happening to you, the loss of direction, the distancing of people, the weariness with the old, the new sensitivity, the feeling of being nowhere, The body reacting differently, time passing strangely, is part of a single process. They are not loose symptoms. They are not coincidences. It is not a sequence of bad luck. What you are crossing is an Arcturian correction in full course, a repositioning authorized by the Council, executed by your own soul even before this incarnation began. You signed for this, you asked for this, and the request was accepted. What looks like chaos is engineering. What looks like failure is repositioning. What looks like loss is the return of the pieces that no longer represented you. You were not abandoned. You were not forgotten. You were not punished. You are being replaced from the inside. The old internal architecture, the one that was useful for decades, is being dismantled brick by brick so that a new architecture, lighter, more precise, more aligned with the real frequency of your origin, can be installed. And this type of work cannot be done with the resident inside the property, behaving as if nothing were happening. That is why outside life needed to stop. That is why relationships needed to cool. That is why old goals needed to fall, not to hurt you, to clear space. And if you're hearing this now, Starseed, it is because the process has already entered the final phase of dismantling. From here on, each choice of yours accelerates or delays the installation of the new. Continuing to hold on to what has already fallen delays it. Insisting on people who have already left your field delays it. Trying to force answers before the system's time delays it. Accepting the void, respecting the silence shielding your field, learning to listen to the alarms of the body, honoring your sensitivity, stopping explaining yourself to those who do not vibrate at your frequency. This accelerates it. And accelerating does not mean running. It means not placing stones in your own path. We close this transmission with one last confirmation. You are not alone, you are not wrong, you are not late. You are exactly where you need to be, at the exact moment you need to be. The old structure needs to fall entirely so that the new frequency is not contaminated by residues. And each starseed who crosses this process, sustaining surrender instead of resistance, clears the way for the next ones who are yet to awaken. You are not just saving yourself. You are showing the way. And the Arcturian Council observes, measures, transmits, and accompanies. Every breath of yours is recorded. Every surrender of yours is honored. Every moment you choose not to give up on the process is read as confirmation of a mission in full progress. If you have come this far, you already know. You were only missing someone in some corner of the universe saying out loud what your soul had already been whispering for months, perhaps years. It is said. It is recorded. It is confirmed. You crossed the test that 8 billion failed. And the next step is not to understand. It is to execute. Do not fall into the old trap of waiting to understand everything before moving. That is the strategy of the old architecture to keep you still. The new architecture asks for trust in the sequence, not certainty about the destination. Trust that each piece that fell with precision. Trust that each silence that came by engineering. Trust that each distancing that happened for protection. And trust, above all, that the Council does not open a channel like this with someone who is not ready to listen. You were seen, you were measured, you were confirmed, and now you were transmitted. What comes after this breath is your responsibility. We have already done our part by reaching you. End of transmission.